just all the amazing numbers associated with this defense, and just, I mean, everywhere you turn, they're first in this, first in that, and first in everything.
I just think they like to turn it into a one-on-one, game. They aren't, I wouldn't say they're complicated in terms of alignment and assignment, but they do a nice job of scheming your run game and your pass game and who you like to target and try to make you play left-handed. I think that's probably the best thing that they do. And because of the way I think they structure things, it's easy to fix it quickly because it's, they're not rolling through so many calls. Again, that's one observation. I'm not saying I'm right there. It's just, they do a nice job of seeing what you do week to week and trying to take advantage of your weaknesses and make you play left-handed.
What challenge do they present with the way that they can blitz from different angles and really try to confuse the quarterback with where they're coming from?
Well, they're not afraid to bring one more than you can protect. That's probably the biggest thing. Their blitz patterns are probably not as complicated as some others because they really, want to match you personnel-wise. They want to play from a man coverage standpoint, but they're not afraid to bring one more than you have, and it really forces you to be, from a structure standpoint, in all your formations, all your protections, to be sound and do the best you can to protect it and do the best you can to get it out of your hands. And if you don't do that, if you don't do those things and make them pay when they bring it, then like you saw the other night, they'll continue to bring it and put your offense at risk and your team at risk.
In terms of what appeared to be the game plan against Seattle, which was coming out with Mayfield getting the ball out of his hand real fast, not enough time for a rush to get there on most of the early throws. How hard is that for the quarterback to execute in terms of, it was working, but how difficult is it to make that work when you kind of get around rush issues by there's no way the rush can get to him?
Well, first of all, I thought Baker did a really nice job getting out of his hands. I thought his eyes were in the right spot. I thought guys did a nice job running routes in reference to a couple weeks ago. Seattle's much more of a zone team, so there are things that you can take advantage, getting the ball out of your hands quicker in terms of sitting in space, which we did and which he did a nice job of. This week's a little bit different. They will play forms of zone, but they're more of a man-match team. And so, again, it presents a little bit more of a challenge in terms of our guys are going to have to win their one-on-one matchups. And when they do decide to double somebody or to try and take a player away, other guys have to be able to step up. So that's really what it comes down to. You got to, up front, your time clock and protection has to get extended because there's a lot of times when they're matching you that there aren't automatic checkdowns. So sometimes they get sacks off of their zero pressure, sometimes they get sacks off just their effort, and you don't have an immediate ball to get to. You're waiting for a matchup to win, and you don't win. So they're as good as anybody at staying in phase with your receivers and making you make contested plays. And if you do, you'll have success. You'll get some matchups in your favor, and you just got to take advantage of them and make the plays down the field. And obviously I know we're talking throwing the football here. I'm not, obviously you've got to be able to run the football, so it's being able to scheme that up. But we're just talking about in the pass game.
What makes them just so good against the first and second year quarterbacks? The stats are out there, 20 straight against those guys, 37-3 at home in their last 40 against first and second year quarterbacks. What are they doing to these young quarterbacks, and how do you prepare Baker, not only schematically but mentally to face that?
Well, one of it, like I said, is that they're not afraid to bring one more than you can protect. So whenever you put a quarterback under duress, it's going to put some stress on. They're going to get stressed in terms of where to go with the ball, and so we have to do a really good job schematically. And again, it's not as if it's something that comes up half of the time. It's just going to come up in some critical situations. The second thing is because of, just the different looks that you get, their ability to jump in and out of different coverages, but specifically in covering your receivers, sometimes there's not an easy check down to just get the ball out to somebody, and there's a comfort level with that with young players. I mean, there just is. So, but I think they've been disruptive to a lot of quarterbacks, not just young quarterbacks.
What makes Gilmore so good? Why is he now considered one of the best couple corners in the league? Anything specifically jump out to you when you watch film?
Well, obviously there's something that we don't know about, because with most great players, there's something about them, what makes them a great player, that whether it's from an instinctual part of it, studying the game plan, competitive nature, that we're not around him. But one thing they do a nice job of is, when you play as much man coverage as they do, I mean, you get better at what you practice. So he does a nice job. All of them do a nice job. He does a nice job. He's long. He's athletic. He can run. Does a nice job staying in phase. And all of them, including him, do a nice job of contesting the ball when it's in the air to a receiver. So I was amazed that the numbers might not be right. There's not as many. You would think with as often as they play man, from a defensive holding, pass interference, you would think there'd be more of those, and there's not. So he does a really nice job.
Everybody talks about how Belichick will change his game plan week to week to, suit the opponent. But do you go in thinking you know exactly what he's, or maybe not exactly, but know what he's going to do to you, or is there that unknown of he might change some stuff up from what he did the last couple of weeks?
I don't know. I mean, it's most teams, just like the New England Patriots, if you're good on defense, you do a lot of the same things. You might tweak some things, different things they may do in terms of the way teams run the football, in terms of who's being targeted, the type of routes you may run, from that part of it. But when it comes down to the core of it, when you watch them on film, they do a lot of the same things over and over and do it well with some subtle nuances to it, I think is probably the best way to put it. It's not like all of a sudden, wow, this one week they were playing a quarters type base coverage, or all of a sudden they were, they do a nice job with their personnel up front and doing a lot of the same things with different people that stresses you in your protections, stresses you in terms of your IDs. They're going to get an extra guy in the box, which makes it harder to run the football. So, again, it's just a lot of good, like I said, more nuance, more subtle changes here or there based on what you do, maybe not so much just drastic schematic differences when you see them week to week.
To take a stab at New England's offensive line, I know you're not facing them, but the point is that their offensive line seems to make do with whoever they throw out there, and everybody follows them, knows that Skarnecki has been the O-line coach forever, and of course Bill's been the head coach forever, and the OC is the same, and all that. But in terms of trying to piece together a cohesive offensive line, how tough is it? You're in your first year, James is in his first year here, and you're trying to piece together cohesiveness on the line without that kind of background.
Yeah, it's that's part of the puzzle. And part of the puzzle is whoever you have on your roster is to make it work. It doesn't matter whether it's your skill group, your O-line, whoever you have, and it's a challenge week to week when you're going against the best. So obviously it's critically important, starting with Joel as our center and Baker at quarterback, getting communicated, in terms of our IDs, making sure we're on the right people. That's the start of it before you even do anything physically, is just getting guys on the same page. You hit on a little earlier, there's at this point so far, we've been able to run the football, and that will always give you a chance. So that's been the positive. It's an interesting dynamic. Just we focus on the one side of, sure, we'd like a lot of things that we do to be better. You could look at it and say, well, maybe we could be better here in protection. We could be better here in our route running. We could be better here in a lot of things that we do. But they're also a big part of why we're running the football well, if that makes sense. Man, I think we've got to take that into account of how well the guys have schemed it and how well our guys have executed it. But obviously, it starts up front with those guys. You can't do anything if you can't run the football and if you can't keep them off your quarterback.
JC at center, or are you giving us an unexpected lineup change?
What did I say, Joel?
Yeah.
Oh, I meant JC. I apologize. Yeah.
What stands out about Jamie Collins when you're watching them?
Well, he's so versatile. I think that's probably the biggest thing, his versatility. You know, they play him in kind of a hybrid role where he can cover, he can blitz. You know, you have to be, you know, he can be a matchup problem if you get him on the, you know, one of your skill players, which they do, or they like to rush him at different spots if they feel like they can take advantage of that matchup. So that's the biggest thing, just his versatility.
Talk about the O-line, and Freddie said either hasn't decided if there's going to be any changes. He said he hasn't even talked about possible changes. But if there are, is it tough to do it at this point in the season if you're going to make
You
a
kinda-
key move?
Kind of going the back door on that, aren't you? Just a little bit, trying to get me to, you know, talked about it, but really didn't talk about it. But if, well, in the end, every team has to make decisions based on what they think is in the best interest of their team. Offensively, it's to move the football, and it came at a good time, you know, in the bye week to take a look at some things. But structurally, you know, like I said, I think all of those guys have had their moments, and some more consistent than others. Like every position we have, they are no different than any other position, and it just happens to be where, you know, we're doing the same thing at every position, where you're looking at different players and what they'll bring to the table, what'll give us the best chance to be successful. So, in terms of that, we like our group, we really do. We just got to do it better in a lot of areas, starting with me and our coaches, and give ourselves the best chance every week to be successful.
You sense that the bye week was healthy for Mayfield? He seemed like he's in a decent place right now. He made a rough
You'd have
start.
to ask him, but I thought, you know, yesterday I thought he threw it really well. You know, again, he's tough-minded, loves to play, so it's hard to even notice that part of it. Like I'm sure it was nagging a little bit even last week, and I really didn't notice it.